Good Friday evening, everyone, and we are back for round two of these playoff debates on Monday. The first leg kicked off with Bournemouth and Swansea taking slight 1-0 advantages into the second leg. We have the returning guests this evening as we take a look at the review of those first legs and the preview of the second legs. It is the halfway stage and there's a lot of football still left to play in these ties. Thank you for everyone currently joining us over our streaming platforms. We want you to get involved tonight from all four teams. Let us know your thoughts. We will show some comments on the screen. Also, make sure if you're on YouTube that you give this video a like. We'll really appreciate it, and subscribe as well. So as I said, we've got the guests that we had on last week. We're going to do it all again. Should we get them on? Let's do it. Welcome back, Billy from Beesotted podcast. We got Carlo from the Reds Report and Luke from Swanscast as well. So we'll just start off, Billy, with you. Just let us know before we get stuck into those previews and reviews. You know, what have you been doing this week for Brentford, and where can the fans find you?
Well, I'm Billy from Beesotted podcast with Brentford podcast and blog. Like I said, we've been going for 30 odd years. We actually didn't realise this after the game on Monday, because we do a post-match podcast as well. We normally do it from the terraces, obviously. Like, you know, we stick a microphone under people's noses and we talk to them for like 15 and 20 minutes. They give us their straight after the game review. But obviously we had to do that in the pub because we were in the pub in the Globe on Monday night. And we didn't realise it was actually our 750th podcast. So that's actually quite a big number as well. So we were very happy about that.
Well done.
So 750, so we're on 751 we did Thursday, which is dropped on Pride of West London. Me and Laney did that as well. We got my mate Russell. Again, I could have got, like I said to you, I've mixed it up because I had you on the last one. I've had other guys on different ones, but I actually got my mate Russell on this podcast as well, who actually talked about, you know, old school days. Because, you know, I used to go back to Bournemouth games when you're in the old fourth division when there were like 2,000 fans and stuff. So he talked about that. And I actually stayed at his house when Brentford played their first ever championship game back in 2014 as well. We went and stayed in Christchurch, had a lovely time, went down to the sea, went kite flying, you know, had some beers. The full Monty, my two kids came down, you know, they were like 6 and 8 at the time. Can't remember any of it, my 6-year-old now, but she comes with me all the time. She'll be there on Saturday. So, like I said to you, there's a little link there as well. The one bad thing about that game, though, is that we did lose 1-0. I think Stanislav scored as well, so we won't talk about that one. But like I said to you, Beesotted Pride of West London podcast, check it out. We've done a match preview on there, and it's definitely worth checking out because well, you hear the Brentford point of view from there. But thanks for having us on again. It's good to see all you guys again afterwards, and I'm glad you all came back, even though the score didn't probably go quite for you like it didn't do for us.
We all stuck to our promise and we're all here this evening. Carlo, great to have you back on. Just tell us what you've been doing potentially this week for for Barnsley. Where can the people find you?
So my name is Carlo van der Watering. I've been doing the Reds Report for about 6 years now. I do with one of my best mates, Steve, who should be commenting at any moment now. Otherwise, I will ring him after the show. We used to do a weekly radio show, slightly different because what we do is we mentor students at Barnsley College who want to go into media. So they're doing journalism courses. They come in the radio show. We give them tasks to do like previews, reviews. But because of COVID, we can't go in the studio, so we changed it. So we now basically record, stick on YouTube, and we've had some really nice features with club staff, secretary, medical staff, match day staff. At Reds Report _. Lots of interviews this week for various news outlets, radio, newspapers, all about if Barnsley can climb the Welsh mountain and come out victorious. So at Reds Report _. You can find us on Twitter. And very happy to be here. I did promise, although we lost.
And Luke, great to have you on again. Just remind everyone where they can find you for Swansea and what you've been doing this week.
Yeah, so you can find us on Twitter and YouTube. Just type in Swanscast on Twitter, Swanscast Media. A little bit quieter this week. We did a couple of episodes last week, but we did the one just sort of a mid-semi-final sort of video where we looked at the last game. Obviously, a good result for us, but far from over. We looked ahead to the next game and discussed maybe what we think is going to happen. So check that out if you would like it. It's also going to be up on Spotify. We haven't quite done that yet. We're lagging behind this week. Got a few technical difficulties, but we're getting there. So keep up with the stuff.
And Thank you guys for coming back. And Cherries Red Army, we gained 18 subscriptions this week, so I really appreciate that and all the support for the video we had last week. I think we went over 500 views for last week's show. So let's go again and let's get stuck into those reviews then. And let's start with the first fixture in the playoffs. It was Bournemouth against Brentford. And before we get stuck into the game, Billy, let's just take a look at those lineups again. Now, Bournemouth, we called it on our own channel. That was the team we were expecting to start. It was a 4-2-3-1, and you can see it on the screen now. But when you look at your team, Billy, was that the lineup you're expecting, or just give us your thoughts before kickoff?
Yeah, that was the lineup that we were expecting. As we said before, with Rico Henry being out and and Dalsgaard being out as well, and obviously Josh De Silva, who's out long term as well. That was the team that we went with. We actually flipped to that with Sergi Canos going at left wing back. We tried a few different options, and in the end, Sergi Canos came in there and he played a few games and he was really good. And the question was it going to be Sergi Canos? Was it going to be Mbeumo going to be playing at left wing back? But we called it that it's going to be Sergi Canos because he's had a few really good games in that position, and it was as we expected. And and that's how it goes. But there were a few changes in the game, it has to say, because like I said to you, and I'll talk about this a bit later, the fact that Rico Henry came on as a substitute, which was a surprise because we didn't even know that he was going to be on the bench. And also Dalsgaard actually came on as well as a substitute for they call him Rasmussen there, but we actually called him, so those two players came on, and for us, that is a massive boost for us because they're properly key players. And we've been kind of like, not knocking the players there, but we've been kind of making do, trying to sort of flip our formation and the team that we put out to kind of accommodate for the fact that these two players aren't there. So the fact that they came on as subs, I think there's going to be a little bit of a kind of like, what's going on tomorrow, on Saturday? Who's going to be starting? Who's going to be coming on? Woodgate's going to have a few things to think about. He might be sleepless nights. There's a few Bournemouth players, actually. Some of our Bees fans I think they saw a few Bournemouth players having a few coffees down in Chiswick High Road. I think it was yesterday. So I think it looks like if it was them, they actually came down even a day early. So they've obviously come down to do a bit of scouting and a bit of spying. Maybe Bielsa's given them a few tips,
We'll take a look at those predicted lineups in the preview of the second leg zone. Just quickly then from Carlo and Luke as well. When you look at those two teams, what was your feelings before the ball was kicked in that Bournemouth-Brentford game, Carlo?
I couldn't call it. I literally couldn't call it because I think Ivan Toney for us has always been, a thorn in our eye. He's always scored against us. I think we had him on loan a while, and if Ivan Toney is on it, it's a very hard team to beat. But then Bournemouth, you look, Ben Pearson is another one that we've had. You've just got quality all over the pitch. I watched it and I couldn't call it. But, you look at the quality on show there, and any of those teams is worthy of going up just with the quality you've got. But, yeah, it's very hard to call. I did enjoy it, though, but you always enjoy watching the other playoff when your team's not involved, don't you?
Luke, your pre-match outside thoughts of this fixture before it kicked off?
Yeah, I couldn't really call it either. I think I mentioned the fact that Bournemouth had lost both games. Maybe they'd be out to maybe get a bit of revenge. I was surprised they lost the first game they played against each other this season. So the fact that they've come away with a win here, they've definitely got the quality to do that. And I'm not surprised in that aspect. I thought Ivan Toney was a bit quiet. I only actually managed to watch the last 20 minutes of the game, and I'm sure you'll discuss it in a little bit more detail. But I don't know how Mbeumo didn't score. Yeah, I think I was criminal, to be honest. But I'm sure you'll have enough to say when you get to dissecting the actual match. But that could be a massive moment.
Let's get stuck into the match then. And from a Bournemouth point of view, I was very confident going into this fixture. That was off the back of 3 losses for AFC Bournemouth and not scoring. We've obviously lost the first the 2 fixtures in the league against Brentford as well. But I went into this game thinking that Brentford were unbeaten in 12. We were hoping that we could burst that bubble. I felt we needed a goal in the first half because Brentford always seemed to come strong in second halves, but we didn't score a goal in the first half. Probably had the better of the chances, I would say. I was there in the stadium on the day. But in the second half, we talked about getting players like David Brooks in the game. Dom Solanke was involved, and Dan Juma, a man that can win a football match at any time, got the deciding goal. But Billy, in that fixture, in that game, like Luke just said, there was a very, very good chance for you for Mbeumo.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the ball came across, it was whipped across by Norgard. Norgard whipped the ball across, and you can argue that he whipped it across too far. It was sort of kind of a shot come across. It came across so far, and Bumo came running in. He slid in. He connected the ball, and he put it wide. And the goalkeeper was nowhere, and it should have gone in the back of the net. I mean, that was a massive, massive opportunity. It was by far the biggest chance of the game. As you know, like I said to you, and I talked about this last week, and I don't try and bore people with stats, because what I try and do is I try and throw it in there just as a sort of matter of fact, so it kind of, you could use it to sort of kind of judge how you're doing. But this game was an interesting game because we weren't as we weren't as on fire as we were when we played you in the last two games, and Bournemouth were better than we played you definitely in the second game as well. So we had to combat that. Our players, to be quite honest with you, and I said this before, is that if Jensen is a great game, then we're laughing. If he has a terrible game, then it's going to be quite hard work. Jensen kept on giving the ball away. You had about 2 or 3 players who really weren't on their game, and the fact is that if you've got a midfield that you've got, and our midfield isn't working like it should be, then it's going to be hard work. And also, you talked about Ivan Toney. Yeah, Ivan Toney scores goals. It'll be funny. You've got to get the ball to him, I'm saying, or else he's going to have to start working and going down and finding it. And that's why you find Ivan Toney on the wing, and the defence is all over the place, because at the end of the day, he's thinking, right, I'm going to try and work and maybe work the ball to try and get somebody else to get a chance. And it's interesting because you talked about Bumo missed that opportunity. Now, Bumo missed that opportunity, not saying why was he there, but it wasn't Ivan Toney. I mean, if Ivan Toney was there, that would have been all over, but it wasn't Ivan Toney in that situation there. So, and also quite interesting, Kirk, you talked about, Bournemouth had the best chances as well. And like I said to you, and listen, you guys played really well. And at the end of the day, I think that you probably might feel that you're lucky that you may not have got maybe one or two, maybe one more extra goal in that game. And it's not necessarily the shots that you missed. I think it's like the build-up play and that you had, which maybe you didn't actually deliver maybe what you should have done. Looking at the actual stats on that, Brentford were much higher than some people hate XG, but I'll talk about it anyway. I think we were about 1.8 and Bournemouth was just over 1. You had 2 chances. I think it was Danjuma had a chance as well, and Solanke had one at about the 18th minute, and then Danjuma had the goal. They were both about 33%, which means that every time you take that shot, 1 in 3 roughly goes in. So you get that chance, and every time 1 in 3 goes in. So you had that. The Bumo chance was, I think it was about 60%. It was massive. It was about 60%. We had about another 40% chance. We had about another 30% chance. And then we had 2 slightly lesser ones, which were 20%. So we actually had sort of five really decent chances actually in the area, in and around the 6-yard box. And I think because we were giving the ball away a lot and we didn't look the same Brentford that we do, you turn around and sort of think, Brentford weren't that great, but, you score one of those chances and the game is turned. And so I think for me, I was disappointed with Brentford. Yes, I was. But at the same day, I actually thought it was 0-0. I thought that was going for a 0-0 game until Pontus Jansson decided to go do the hokey cokey on the line up there. I don't know what the hell he was doing up there on the touchline, centre back, going, hey, here you go, start dancing. Somebody's probably playing some music in the stand, and he started doing the old jig, and all of a sudden he gives the ball away to the Bournemouth players, and they've gone bang, 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 bang. See you later, Bosch, in the back of the net. Obviously no centre back there. Norgard's trying to sort of kind of do the job, and I'll tell you something. So that was really, really frustrating, because all of a sudden you're chasing the game. And then, of course, Bumo missed a chance as well. So, so that's that, like I said to you, that was frustrating. But for me, I was glad because it was only 1-0. You know what I'm saying? And, it could have been more, if Bournemouth had a bit more shooting boots on. But, at the end of the day, like I said to you, it was only 1-0. And so we've gone into this game thinking, okay, we can pull this one back. I mean, somebody said in the comments there that Billing had a chance as well. Yes, he had one on 12 minutes, but interestingly, the probability on that one was 8%. So basically, roughly 1 in 10 of every one of those chances that have been recorded have actually gone in the back of the net. So yes, it was in the box, but it was relatively to the other chances. It was one of those ones where, listen, if you've got premium strikers, man, you put them ball in the back of the net. You could do, and that's what Ben Rama used to do all the time. Like I said to you, when we were struggling, Ben Rama would come out and he'd curl one in the corner, and you'd be like, Jesus, and you work it out. There's like 1 in sort of 2 in 100 of those would have actually gone in the back of the net. But that was so beautiful about Benrahma. And so that's what's great about having those players in your side. And Bournemouth have got those players. I have to say that without a shadow of a doubt. But I was really pleased that we actually kind of limited them to only 2 big chances. And when I say big chances, we're talking about 30, 35, 40, 50% type chances, which means that technically they should have put the ball in the back of the net.
Let's move on to Barnsley and Swansea then in the second game, and we'll bring your lineups up. And Carlo, when your lineups were dropped an hour before kickoff, were you happy with what you saw?
Yeah, I think I said it before. I think defensively we looked. Halleck and Anderson are ever present. Toby Sibic, I think Toby Sibic is younger. He's got a bit more pace than Solbauer, and Daryl DK. We know it starts. It's up front, isn't it? Coley Woodrow, Daryl DK, Dominic Frieser got the nut this time, and the rest. The midfield has always sort of been the same. So it was one up front we always sort of wondered about, that can change, and one in defence. And so there were no great surprises from a Barnsley point of view in the lineup. The surprise for me was the Swansea lineup, because Roberts. You can't talk about Championship football and not talk about Roberts. And there was a really good picture of him sitting in our West Stand, which is the stand that's never been modernised, and it didn't look a happy bunny. Norton got the nod. I think that was more for maybe experience, the first eye, fans in the stadium. My reckoning is that Roberts will start tomorrow. But from a Barnsley point of view, no surprises in the lineup at all.
You're doing the job for me now, Carlo, because that was one of the things I was going to bring up. But Luke, that lineup was dropped an hour before kickoff. Didn't have Roberts in it, but how did you feel about that lineup before kickoff?
The Roberts thing didn't surprise me. I called it before the game that he wasn't going to start. I even went on Ben Bloom's podcast and told him he wasn't going to start. And Norton started. So the surprise for us actually was Ben Cabango starting ahead of Ryan Bennett. But I understand why he's done it, especially after watching the game. With the way that Barnsley play with their high press, they kicking the ball up, they want to push all of their team up to try and win the second ball, third ball. Cabango a little bit taller, maybe a little bit more mobile than Bennett. There was a couple of balls going through the middle, and I think that could have been a different story on another day. But having Cabango there, he probably recovers a little bit better than Bennett on stuff like that. And for example, a couple of corners corners for us that ended up in counter attacks for Barnsley. Same sort of situation. He's probably not the best at getting back the quickest. Probably the nicest way to put it. But the rest of the lineup, I think, was pretty much what we expected.
Coming back to you then, Luke, the game kicked off, and we talked last week about players that could do well for our teams, and you talked about Andre Ayew. Barnsley haven't beaten Swansea yet. They haven't scored either, but Andre would get himself in space. He's not a player that you would expect to have great pace or take on players always, but he gets in space. He's got a wicked left foot, and his goal would be the difference. Yeah,
so you have to call him out as the one that could make a difference. He turns up for big matches. He scored a goal in the home leg against Brentford last year. And he's turned up again. So we've been saying for a while, when we were playing the 5 at the back system and he was playing as a striker, it was time to move him out to the wing, because he drags people out wide with him and it gives like that extra space for him to cut in. On this occasion, obviously, the ball broke. A little bit of a counter-attack because of a bit of sloppy possession, really, and he got played in, but he was able to cut inside, which is what he always wants to do. I think everyone knows that's what he wants to do, but sometimes it's difficult to stop. I think, not saying he's the same quality or anything, but it's the same concept of what Robin used to do all the time for Bayern Munich and the likes. It's literally the same thing, but a very good finish. And if it had to be someone for a 1-0 win for us, it was always going to be him.
Another 1-0 for Swansea, another clean sheet for Freddie Woodman. Question for you then, Carlo. I expected you to score in this game. You didn't get a goal. Are you disappointed that Halleck let Andre Ayew come inside him and get a shot away? And I did watch the extended highlights, and I'm still trying to figure out how you didn't score in this game.
Well, I'm in the same position as you. Michael Halleck was voted Player of the Season. Bearing in mind, he nobody had heard of him. Come from Poland. He's now in the Polish squad for the Euro, so that shows the journey he's been on. He's been an ever-present. He's done really well. He shouldn't have done it, and nobody will be more mad than Michael Halleck himself, and he'll be ready for that tomorrow. I think it took us a little bit. Ismail talked about it. Fans were amazing. And I've seen some really good comments actually from some of the Swansea players saying, it sounded like 40,000 and not 4,000. But I did think that had a bit of an impact as well. We looked a little bit panicky, a bit jittery. And I would say it wasn't probably till the second half and the introduction of Carlton Morris that we started playing football the way we want to play it. Because there was a lot of that, let's just get it up there and push them in. And that didn't really lead to anything. Mowat was completely bypassed in midfield. And, if you don't get the best out of Mowat, I think you almost lost a player, haven't you? So I think that's where probably he'll approach it a little bit differently. But yeah, Hellick had an attempt on goal, very tame, straight hands. Britton, you would back anybody else to have Callum Britton's been amazing, but he's not scored a goal yet. So that hat-trick tomorrow will be more than welcome. But the keeper was in awesome form. And I think sometimes, you not only got to look at your own players, but I think the two central defenders for Swansea were absolutely spot on. They knew exactly what to do with Daryl DK. And you have to give them credit, because if that's your weapon and they nullify it, you look elsewhere, don't you? I think Barnsley played better if we use that with more Styles on one side, Britton on the other side, and get better balls into the box. Carlton Morris made a difference, and I would probably expect him to start tomorrow because he drops a little bit deeper, he collects the ball, and I think when he was running at defenders, that's when we started causing problems. So for us to score a goal, I think that's what we need to start to do earlier. That pressure is not applied by getting it in their area, because they've got players to deal with that. I think we need to put the pressure by at their feet, running at them, because no defender sort of likes that, and getting numbers in that box. So I think there'll be a slightly different approach from Barnsley tomorrow. And I reckon Connor Chaplin might actually get a start because he's got a low centre of gravity. He's very tricky with the ball, and it's something different for a defender to deal with. Let's put it that way, rather than trying to hold DK off, because they did that extremely well, and you can't say nothing else about that.
And as an outsider on this game, Billy, I mean, what's your thoughts on that 1-0 victory for Swansea?
I mean, it's interesting. Again, we was down the pub watching the Bees game, which was the first game. Then after that, we sat down and we sort of watched the Swansea game. But I only had my eye a quarter on the Swansea game, because to be quite honest with you, when you've lost your match, everyone was busy dissecting, what had gone down in our game. So I didn't really see it as such. So interestingly, what I did is I actually kind of just had a little glance at the stats, just to get an idea of what was happening in that game. And I've looked at it and I thought, cool, blimey. I thought, God, of Barnsley, they've actually kind of got involved. I mean, you've had 2 or 3 sort of decent chances, one really good chance in there as well, like I said to you. And I've seen that, which from, Britain as well, in 48 minutes, 41, but basically half, in effect, pretty much 1 and 2, normally in the back of the net of those ones, didn't score that. And then I'm looking at Swansea, and I'm trying to work out which one was the goal, because the dots are so small, I can't actually kind of work out. So you've had sort of kind of lots of sort of chances from outside the area and the edge of the area. And then I've seen it where IU's goal is about 5%. So basically 5 out of 100. And this is the whole thing. And I said this last week. You got premium strikers. When they get the ball and they put the ball in the back of the net, they get very few opportunities. But if they can score them, honestly, that's worth its gold. It's worth gold dust. Swansea had 0.34 on the XG, and Barnsley had over 1. You know what I'm saying? So Swansea created very little decent opportunities, but the opportunity that they got, they put it in the back of the net. And again, you can see the frustration as a Brentford fan, because we create loads and loads of really good opportunities, and we basically just fluff loads of them. That's just kind of what we do. Brentford, we're still up there, but we fluff loads of them. And if we had, and I'm not saying Ayew, obviously, he's really frustrating because he keeps on falling over and doing all sorts of stuff like that, but he's a great striker. And you can see sometimes the difference between when you get, I'm not saying Ivan Toney isn't, but you can see that where he literally one chance, a milli chance, and bang, in the back of the net. And fair play to them. They defended hard. They didn't create very much, but the one chance that they did create, they scored. The question that people ask is that, can you keep doing that week after week after week after week? Some teams can, if you've got the right players, you can do, but also you kind of, treading a fine line, but Swansea now know what they have to do. They've got to go to the following game and they've got to defend. Yeah. They've got to defend against Barnsley. Barnsley got to come at them, and they just kind of, could soak it up. And if their defence is as good as it's had been, they'll soak it up. Then, they're in the final, and that's all you need, isn't it?
That's the reviews then wrapped up, and we're going to take a look at the previews of these second legs that kick off tomorrow. Keep letting us know your thoughts in the chat. There's some interesting discussions, and we will show comments on the screen. So we're going to take a look at these previews. I'll talk about AFC Bournemouth to start with then. And Jonathan Woodgate had his press conference today. Now, last week, Billy, you said you're not counting your chickens. You're not taking the card that your favourites. And Jonathan Woodgate said again today that we're still the underdogs. Brentford are still the favourites, even though we have that 1-goal lead. He talked about player availability. Ben Pearson is 50-50, and so is Steve Cook. Now, I expect Chris Mepham to come in for Steve Cook, is my honest feeling. I think he will risk Ben Pearson and see if he can get him out there. If it doesn't quite work and he does struggle, Jack Wilshere will come off the bench. But Billy, like you said, go back to it. He's calling you favourites. I mean, what's Thomas Frank's opinion at this stage? And is there any concerns? Because Tony looked like he was struggling at parts of that game with an ankle injury.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting because obviously, you know, we do like to put our secret agents into other teams so that they can actually help us out at times that we need. And Agent Mepham, it's very good that Agent Mepham is going to be called upon, hopefully, for this game. And hopefully he'll do his tasks dutifully and do the business. Now, we like Chris Mepham, even though, you know, he came straight out of our B team and played about 30 games, and then you gave us £15 million for him. So we went, thank you very much. And so he's off. So he's playing for you now. So even though he came through a whole academy, he's very much a cherry. Let's see how that, you know, like I said to you, let's see how that plays out. Yeah, Ivan Toney was limping a little bit, but Thomas Frank, and the word has gone out that all our players are fully fit. I'd say all our players except for obviously Josh De Silva, because he's got a long-term injury. So I think that for me has made everyone feel a little bit more comfortable. But I think also what's happened is I think that, you know, there's a little bit of teasing, not teasing, but both sides going on. Obviously, they're telling us that we're Bournemouth are the underdogs and we're not, but you're 1-0 up, and, you know, you've got a side that's got millions of pounds of players and Premier League players in your side. So it's kind of like, yeah, that kind of washes with some people, but, you know, kind of not with others. But also the other thing is that, you know, it's like, who's going to come in? Are we going to stick with what we've got? Are we going to stick with this, like, you know, three at the back, which we switched to because we had our players missing, or will we bring Rico Henry back? Will we go back to 4-3-3? You know, what is Brentford exactly going to do in this situation? And I think the question mark is, you know, and I said this beforehand about Woodgate. Woodgate, listen, he's done fantastically well. You know, he was trying to do one thing at Borough with a certain type of player, but he didn't have the players there to do it. So now he's got him at Bournemouth. He's trying to do it, but it's like, is he wily enough? If all of a sudden the tactician comes out, they start changing things. Is Woodgate wily enough to think, hold on a second, I need to change what I'm doing to combat this? So this is going to be interesting, what's going to happen in this game, what Thomas Frank's going to do, who he's going to play, and also the players are going to come in. Are they going to be able to perform? Rico Henry was a little bit rusty, I thought, you know. Great player, but a little bit rusty. Interesting as well, none of our attacks came down the flanks. They all came down the middle as well. So none of the sort of kind of real, I mean, talk about Norgard was in, but no, in effect. So we need to actually kind of go to where our strengths are, because that's where we actually play. And it's kind of getting the ball up down the flanks, getting the ball in there, causing problems. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I hope Ivan Toney isn't injured. I'm not being funny, but Ivan Toney, the person who's, I'm sure he would just say, look, this, you know, just never say give us an injection, but just keep me going. Just put me out there. Whatever you need to do to put me out there. So I'm just sort of thinking that I think Toney will be there. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Rico Henry plays. I wouldn't be surprised if Dalsgaard plays. And I think even Jensen was kind of bad, Jensen, the other day. I think we're going to stick with him, because the thing about it is it's one of those things. If you stick with him, if he has a great game, mate, you're on fire. And I think we're going to come out properly on fire. There's 4,500 of us in the stadium. I mean, literally, I'm leaving straight from here. I'm going down the pub afterwards. I'm going to be camped out, sitting in the pub. I'm going to be there all night. You know, with all our mates, so we can be there straight 8:00 in the morning. We'll get up. You know, we're going to be singing. They've organised it so that we can actually get in larger groups. So we've actually bought our tickets in larger groups. So we're not in these 2s and 3s. We're actually in larger groups together, but still COVID friendly as well. It's clever. So we've all brought that together. So we've actually, and we're in the stand where we've actually bought our season tickets as well. And don't forget, it's the first time that we've actually been in the stadium for a proper game. We went there for a game earlier in the season, but that was kind of a bit of a sightseeing tour. You know, it's really, this is like the real one. So there's going to be a lot of pottiness. I mean, you talked about the sound, Carlo, at Barnsley. There's going to be a lot of pottiness in Brentford. And I think us fans really do believe that we are going to be the 12th man and try and help get them over the line, because we're going to need it against Bournemouth, because you're a good side. And I keep saying it.
I can see some questions in the chat, and I'm going to come back to them in just a bit when we come across these score predictions. Just come to you, Luke, then. Bit of a similar scenario for you. 1-0 up last year in the playoff semi-final first leg. You go into this fixture. How are you looking this? How do you expect this to play out? And is your squad going to be slightly different? Any injuries?
The key thing is last year we went away second leg with a 1-0 lead. This time we're coming home. And that, as you've just pointed out, is coming home to fans, which haven't been there all season, because we didn't even have fans in that period before Christmas that it started opening up in Wales. We didn't have any. So this is the first time they've been in the stadium since before COVID now in Wales. So hopefully that will be massive. In regards to the team, I know you're saying again, you think maybe Connor Roberts might come in, but Steve Cooper, when he's had a winning solution this season, there's not many times he's changed it unless it's been forced. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't anything that is required to be changed in terms of injuries and stuff like that. Whether Bennett might come in, I maybe. It's hard to drop Cabango and Geehee after the game they had. Roberts could come in for Norton if he maybe wants to go a little bit more attacking at the start, try and get that second goal, and then consolidate, sit back a little bit. You could even change to the 5 at that point and sub him on or whatever, or sub Norton on. It's tough. I'm not sure. I think I'm not going to know until the team sheet comes out. It wouldn't even surprise me if he starts with the 5 at the back this time, knowing that we 1-0 up and you've got to break us down. At the same time, we played a lot of the season with our formations, so it's not like it's changing to be more defensive necessarily. Most of our assists throughout that period came from our wing backs. So you're putting Connor Roberts on the pitch and he is the attacking threat. And maybe that gives the element of surprise. Barnsley aren't expecting us to change the formation. Just keeps the game of chess ticking along, if you like, in terms of the two managers and if they need to tweak things along the way. Other than those things, I can't see too much change in. If it is 5 at the back, I'd expect Cullen to drop out. But if Wayne Routledge gets on the pitch, it could potentially be his last game at home for Swansea. So I just wanted to point that out. He hasn't signed the contract extension for next year yet, but he is like 36. So depending on whether we're successful in the playoffs or not, maybe he will or won't continue another year. But yeah, I can't call this one, and quite nervous, to be honest. I don't know how Carlo's feeling, but it's definitely not over. That's all I'll say.
So, Carlo, you said last week Barnsley got nothing to lose, didn't expect to be in this position. Now, when I look at this fixture, this is the 4th fixture between the teams, and you haven't scored in the other 3. I expect Barnsley, and I might be wrong here, to throw the absolute kitchen sink at Swansea tomorrow to get that first goal and put them on the ropes. I mean, am I wrong?
No, kitchen sink, garden furniture, bedroom furniture, the lot. It's all going. Listen, 4-3-3. 3-4-3. That's how he plays. I think it's the personnel that will be interesting. He'll have analysed, he'll have looked at previous matches, and he's got options, hasn't he? So you could look at Freezer, who came on. Freezer's really fast. He's got good pace. I think Connor Chaplin is a bit more tricky to deal with, especially for defenders. Very good in small spaces. You could look in midfield. Mowat was bypassed, so he's got the option of taking Palmer out and putting Apo Halme in. Really a defender, but he's been playing in midfield. He can play that defensive role, maybe actually pushing Mowat up a little bit so he can pull those strings a little bit more. I think he's got a full squad to choose from, and he says that's a wonderful feeling. He said in the press conference, controlling the emotions is what's going to be the hardest. And I can't help but think that the Swansea fans will be there, and I hope they enjoyed as much as the Barnsley fans did on Monday night. And obviously that same for Billy and the Brentford fans. The best way to shut them up is getting an early goal, isn't it? Because then the jitters will be going. So yeah. I'm unsure. I mean, listen, the reason I do a podcast is because I can't play football, but I'm unsure if having those fans, if you then go behind and it's all level, he said it's half-time. It's a 180-minute match. It's half-time. Plenty of teams have come back from 1-0 down. So personnel-wise, it's really hard because he plays his cards close to his chest. I do feel, though, that we've got lots of options where he can go, and he will make changes. You saw that last week. On Monday. Second half, Morris, he was on. He could well put him on the bench again, and they throw the kitchen sink. And if that doesn't work, we'll put Morris on and we'll throw some more kitchen sinks. We will clean the mess up afterwards, Luke. But
right.
think back of 2006, Barnsley Huddersfield lost 1-0 at home. We went away and we got the result. And he has said that maybe the players will find it actually with not having our fans. There's little bit less pressure as well. So I still can't call it. I do have to take a bit of credit that I said last week, didn't I? I thought Ayew and Hourihane are match winners. Hourihane won that battle in midfield because Mowat was rarely involved, and Ayew had a moment of brilliance. Whether he should have been afforded that, whether he was side, but anybody says it don't matter. He got a chance and he scored it. Billy gave you sort of like the stats. Only really, really good, professional strikers can put it where he did. So Barnsley will be prepared that they'll have looked at Monday and what went wrong, because in fact we did some things wrong, and I think it'll be frantic. And Barnsley is used to having lots of chances. Is can we finish? That's going to be the big question. But Swansea get an early goal and it starts jittering a bit, and we start thinking, well, we've had a good season anyway, don't we? We finished 5th. That's decent. Barnsley get an early goal. And it's like, looking for the Premier Inn near Wembley, isn't it? So anything can happen.
I'm going to request those score predictions in just a bit. So start thinking about that in the chat. I have a couple of questions coming up. You would have heard this, I'm sure, many times, Billy. But from Dan, do you think Brentford's record in the playoffs will have any effect?
Again, we've talked about this loads on, like I said to you, on the prideofwest.london. So check it out, prideofwest.london podcast. If you go to prideofwest.london, we've talked about this loads. And there's all sorts of excuses flying down, because obviously, like I said to you, 9 playoff losses out of 9 so far. So this is the 10th one. And I've seen every single one. I've been to every single one, including in the pub for the last one. That counts as well. But like I say, starting off at Tranmere in 1990. So, and also the other thing is that, there's the rumour going around, if you're playing red and white stripes, no one's ever won the playoffs in red and white stripes. And then there's losing in the lucky changing room at Cardiff as well. Brentford were the first team. Every team that played in the lucky southern dressing room at Cardiff, they all won. And then of course Brentford came along. I think it's the 13th or 14th time we're the first team to have lost in that. So we just can't buy a win when it comes to a big game. Now, if you look at it logically, it's completely and utterly nonsense that Brentford 2021 is linked to the 1985 Leyland Daft team that lost 3-1 to Wigan that Chris Kamara was playing in. Like, you know what I'm saying? And the reason why they lost is that, while Wigan just sort of kind of really focused on playing, the Brentford team went off to, I think it was Cyprus for a week on the absolute lash, and came back thinking they were going to win, and they just got absolutely hammered, like, you know what I'm saying? But that's kind of what happened. So since then, we've actually never won like a cup final, Leyland Daft final, playoff final, anything, playoff match. We've just lost them all. But they can't be linked because it actually doesn't make sense. We were trying to work out, the other day, whether or not, if there's something in Brentfordness where when you sign for the club, you kind of rubs off on you that the Brentfordness of sort of losing in big games rubs off onto you. But it's nonsense. It's not true. But I think for us as fans, it probably makes us feel a little bit better that we think, actually, we always lose playoff finals, so that you almost like prepared yourself so that when you get another playoff final that you just think you're going to lose it. And when you win it, eventually it's fine. But I have to say, when we lost that playoff final last year, and then when we lost again on Monday night, I'm almost like anesthetized to it. You know what I'm saying? Is that the right word? I just literally am kind of like, because I'm so used to it. It's just like, if we lost, and then I'll go, I'll go to Preston again next year, and we go, who else? Hull, and who else is coming down? It literally is like that. As Brentford fans, we just have to accept it is what it is, and if we win, it's going to be brilliant. But we're just so used to it. Listen, we just have to go with the flow. So I really hope we win. But if we don't, I'm off to Preston again.
Don't want those score predictions yet, Luke and Carlo, but just one team. The question, I think, from Dan again is, who would you prefer to play in the final? So one team, not necessarily who you think will get there. Who would you prefer to play, Luke?
Well, I mean, he just spent a long time talking about the hoodoo around Brentford on the playoff. But look, based on the games we played this season, I don't think we came close to beating Bournemouth. We didn't do very well in both games, and especially the most recent one, you really had our number. Not saying that we did much better against Brentford, but I think the first game was more equal. The second game, don't know how we didn't lose. But after like last year in the playoffs, they knocked us out. There's something there, isn't there, to like go out and motivate to get over the final hurdle, if we get there, of course. So I'd probably say the Premier League experience of Bournemouth makes me more nervous. And I feel like Brentford, if they get it right, they'll probably win. But there's probably like more chance that they'll have an off day, maybe. It's difficult either way. I'm not trying to say either one's easier, but I think there's just more involved in Swansea versus Brentford. And the Bournemouth Premier League experience is definitely another level when they turn it on.
No score prediction yet, Carlo, but which team would you prefer to play in that final if you got the job done tomorrow?
Very much what looks very hard, because I think you beat us 4-0 live on Sky, which I still have nightmares about. But then we went to your place, didn't we? And was it 3-2? We won. So I think my worry is the quality all over the pitch. And there is this, Billy said it earlier, I think it seems that if you can stop the supply to Tony, who seems to be the central man for Brentford, you can silence Brentford. We've had very good experiences with Brentford. Billy will not like it that much, but the last match of the last season, we played them when, was it 22 unbeaten? You'd gone on a real right run, and we went there. And so, yeah, I think the quality all over pitch, you need to be on your absolute best, I think, to stop Bournemouth. And I think for players, if you've beaten somebody already, and you did the same last season, so probably prefer Brentford. And I did predict that we would face each other in the final. So why not? Let's go Brentford.
And something that could come into play tomorrow, potentially, is extra time and penalties. And I think all four teams total is 26 penalties taken, 25 scored. So someone's missed. I think it is from Barnsley. I don't know if you can confirm that, Carlo, but I think there is a penalty miss this season for Barnsley.
Daryl DK for his hat-trick. I can't remember who we played, but yeah.
Would you feel comfortable with penalties, Billy? I mean, Tony's got 9 out of 9 if it went that far.
100%. I mean, look, penalties are just penalties, and Ivan Toney, I should say, should be comfortable with him, and then he'll probably miss his first penalty. But he seems to know how to take a penalty. It's like really bizarre, his penalty routine, and I'm comfortable with that. Whether or not the other four would be able to step up and score, that's a different story altogether. But again, the other thing is, I'll go to England. I've been to every England. I've been to 16 England tournaments. I've been everywhere. I've been to every single England penalty shootout. And trust me, I just believe that England could never. I've just seen them lose all the time, everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So for me, penalties are not the best thing. It was wonderful when we actually won that penalty shootout in England. This is different, isn't it? But in Russia the other day, because I just never thought it was going to happen. So for me, I've got something against penalties because I've seen so many penalty losses. However, if this goes to penalties, I'm going to have to just say fair enough, because at the moment we're 1-0 down, and I'd rather be, going to penalties and, put it to a lottery than actually just go straight out. So, but you didn't ask me. You didn't ask me who I wanted in the final, because I was, sorry to interrupt there, because I have to say this as well. No two ways about it. I want Swansea in the final, because there is a bit of a strange. There's a strange elephant in the room, and listen, we've got to. Everyone's been really polite, and listen. I know Luke's good bloke. All the Swanscast people are good bloke. I know Tom from SOS Fanzine. Like I'm saying, I know, the Swansea fan TV. I know all these characters. They're all brilliant. Okay, but there is this really weird rivalry between Brentford and Swansea, which I've got no idea where this has come from, and it's all kicking off left, right, and centre the whole time. It is literally social media. You have to just turn off for a few days, because it's just like it's left, right. It's going off all over the place between Brentford and Swansea. I think it's. I don't know when it started. I think it started.
Thomas Frank started with last season.
I think it might have started actually after Rico Henry got sent off, when he shouldn't have got sent off.
Yeah, but he was very irate after that, wasn't he? And he came out so bullish, saying like, "We won't lose the second match. We created enough chances. I'm confident we will be in Wembley after the first game." Which, to be fair, he was right. But that's what Cooper basically.
But Cooper was really ungracious in everything. He really was. So it was all, honestly. So there's a Cooper, there's Thomas Frank, there's all the fans. It's all kicking off. Then we won the second game, but then it just spilled over into this season, and then Swansea kept falling over every time we played them, and all sorts of stuff. Like I'm saying, there's and it's hilarious, because all Brentford fans are thinking that probably because we missed last season Fulham had gone up, had to come back down again. So we missed out on the Fulham thing. So I had to get that in somehow, didn't I? And I don't know whether or not they're sort of kind of looking for some sort of rivalry thing going on. So all of a sudden, it's like the Swansea thing is kind of given a little bit of a juice where, like, if you're going to play them, you feel that there's a little. Like, if we play Barnsley, it's like, Barnsley, they're happy to be there. We kind of like them, and it's all really nice, and you play them. And Bournemouth are like Premier League, but you want to kind of beat them. But it's all very kind of shake your hands and try and beat them. Whereas with Swansea, there's like a little bit of juice, and for the TV people, for everyone will want Brentford Swansea because there is something really strange going on there, and it's definitely one of the. I mean, Luke's held back a little because he's like going, oh, but really you kind of know that, you would love to beat us. And listen, this is nothing against you because you're a good bloke. All the Swansea characters and the girls, I know they're brilliant, what I'm saying? But when you come to football, you just want your team to win and you want to have that feeling where you've kind of got one over somebody. That's right, which is the way. So for me, I'd love to play Swansea.
So after that, it's definitely Bournemouth Barnsley then, isn't it?
He's jinxed us both, man.
Just to clarify,
we can replay it next week, next season. You know what I'm saying? At the Liberty Stadium.
Just to clarify, it's probably because Cardiff keep getting in the way. That's why you can't get too close to them, Billy. So, but there we go. Right, let's refresh the chat, shall we? Let's get your score predictions in. Let's do it how we did it last week. We're going to do the Bournemouth and Brentford second leg prediction first, so put that in the chat. Bournemouth Brentford kicking off at 12:30 tomorrow, so we'll go round. Luke, Brentford Bournemouth at the Community Stadium, what's your score prediction?
It's tough, isn't it? Like, I'll be surprised if Brentford don't score for 2 games in a row. I know how much they're built around the analytics, the stats, like Billy's mentioned previously, the XG and all that, and they're confident even if they don't score one game, they create the chances, they'll come the next. So whether the Bournemouth can get a goal, I think. I feel like Brentford will have 1 or 2. So I'm going to say 2-1 Brentford. So it's going to go to extra time.
Oh God, it doesn't.
That's what I'm going to go with. And then, I don't know, I just think, like, based kind of like what Billy just said, I think Brentford will get through, to be honest. And like the other panel on Swanscast, Lee, he's been saying since March is going to be the playoff final. I'll touch wood now because I don't want to jinx it for us. And I'm not trying to disrespect Bournemouth or Barnsley, but he's been saying since March, is written in the stars, based on all that perceived bad blood that might have come from the last year or so, wherever it's come from. He's been saying like it's going to happen. It's going to be the playoff final. So,
Carlo, Brentford Bournemouth tomorrow. What's your score prediction?
2-0 Brentford. I think Brentford are. The way the club's run, it's very much like Barnsley. It's very stats-based, very, very analytical. And I think, I can't even say the mistakes, but I think they'll be far more on it tomorrow. Well, like I said before, for whatever reason, ever since we knew, I've always thought it was going to be a Barnsley-Brentford final for whatever weird reason. So, I'm going 2-0 Brentford tomorrow.
1-0
down then going into this game, Billy. How are you feeling about the game? What's the score prediction?
So for this game, for me, I've obviously, listen, the one thing about it is that we have got nothing to lose. We really don't at the moment now because we're losing at the moment now. And also the other thing is that Brentford play better if they've got no pressure on them. So you saw when they came out of lockdown last time and they went bang, bang, and they won 8 games in a row because they had no pressure on. It's almost like sometimes when you see the pressures on, they kind of just overthink it. So for this game, we know that all we need to do is you need to turn up. And if we lose, we lose because we're losing anyway. I actually think it's going to be 1-0. I think the game's going to be 1-0. It's going to go to penalties, but I can't call penalties because it's a lottery when it comes to penalties. All I know is that I'm going to say Ivan Toney will score, and the rest of them, you just do what you're going to do. So it's going to be 1-0, and it's going to be a proper nail biter.
Start getting your score prediction in for Swansea versus Barnsley. I'm going to give my prediction for Bournemouth. I think the first goal is the biggest goal, an obvious thing to say, but I think if we score that first goal, it could be enough. I don't think we'll win the game. I can see Brentford scoring as well, like Luke said. Hopefully we can keep Toney quiet again, but maybe he'll get himself on the score sheet for the first time against Bournemouth this season. But I'm going for 1-1. That'll be enough to get the job done. But if if Brentford score the first goal, I really can't call it, because with those 4,000 behind them, it might give them a lift. So I'm going for 1-1 and hoping that that's enough. So let's come full circle then. I'll start again then with this Barnsley-Swansea. I see Barnsley scoring a goal, and I see this being a 1-1 as well. So I think it will just be enough for Swansea. But I do think Barnsley will score the first goal, and Swansea will equalise. Billy, going into this fixture, Swansea-Barnsley, Swansea have the lead 1-0. You want Swansea
again,
in the final?
1-0 to Swansea, and it's going to go. Sorry, 1-0 to Barnsley, and it's going to go to penalties, and I can't call it. I can't call it. So listen, you just throw it into the mixer. All I'm going to say is that for Swansea, and Andre Ayew will score. You know what I'm saying, and probably low as well, because he seems to be able to whack the ball in the back of the net. So there's 2 goals for Swansea there. And, Barnsley, DK, I like DK because he was at university only about 12 months ago. So the fact that he's gone from university to playing in the UK and playing for the US national team, I'll give him a goal as well. So we'll score a penalty. I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of them. So that's all good.
Throw in the kitchen sink at it then, Carlo. Got to score tomorrow.
Everything. Yeah.
And
Interestingly enough, Avelino said they've not practiced penalties because he hopes to get it done within the 90 minutes. And if you start concentrating on penalties, their mindset is, if it is 1-0, So, listen, you said it. It's that first goal, isn't it? It's either going to be 2-0, and they've got 4 matches against us, 2-0 all the way. If Barnsley get that first goal, I can see him getting another one. So, I said it, similar to Brentford, I think. And it depends how Swansea set off. If they set up quite defensively, that make it harder on us, because we score goals by going on that counter attack, by that high press. If they set up quite defensively, we've struggled breaking teams down when they set up like that. But I'll put my money where my mouth is, and I said it before. I think Barnsley will do it within 90 minutes tomorrow, having no pressure, and it's a frightening thought that. On the way to Swansea, they'll collect kitchen sinks to throw at them tomorrow in the Liberty Stadium. So I'll go 2-0, and it'll be a Brentford-Barnsley final.
And over to you, Luke. You're nearly there. You were nearly there last year. What's the score prediction? How's it going to go tomorrow?
Well, you just mentioned, Carlo, that you're going to try and counter-attack us. I'm telling you now, that's not happening, because we've played all season again. Well, we counter-attack, basically. I think there's a bit of a thing. People are like, is it the Swansea way? It's kind of an evolution of it, where we can play that football, but more often than not, we're countering or sitting back a bit more. Hence why everyone says about our defence being hard to break down. I can't see Steve Cooper changing that. I think he's going to soak up. He knows how Barnsley played all season, so he's going to be aiming to soak up the pressure and do the same as what he did in the away leg. Maybe try to get the first goal though before they absolutely go defence. So I'm going to say 1-1 as well. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we score the first goal. It looks a bit comfortable, maybe, at that point. But then Barnsley get the goal, which again pulls it tight. And then we're holding on for dear lives. I think that's wouldn't surprise me if that's how the game goes. And we all can't watch the last 5 minutes because it's just getting pumped into the box. And you've got 6 strikers on the pitch. Yeah, I think that might be what's going to happen.
It's been great to have you back on then. From an AFC Bournemouth point of view, if we get to the final, it'll probably be one of the unlikely things, because at one part in the season, back in January, it was a long shot and we were not in a good place. But we'll take where we are now. And if we can get a draw, can get to that final, we'll be more than happy. Billy, this is your 1 minute, your last opportunity to spur your team on. Tell the fans where they can find you over this sort of playoff second leg weekend, and take it away.
All I'll say is that come on, you bees. We're going to be in the stadium. I'm really looking forward to it, actually. First game since December when we played Blackburn Rovers again. And like I said to you, getting behind the team is so massive. And fans back in the stadium, God, how much we've missed that. But you can check us on prideofwest.london. We're Beesotted, which is Beesotted. We've got a podcast which landed yesterday, I think it was, or maybe this morning. You can check us out on that because it talks about the game. It talks about, and we've got a Bournemouth fan, like I said to you, my mate Russell, a good old little chin mag with him. And he talked about the match and the fact that he was actually really nervous. But after he saw how we played, he's actually very confident about, going into this next leg. So I'm going to have a word with him about that afterwards, because I thought we were good mates. So anyway, so you check that out. And also after the match, Win, lose or draw, we do it all the time. We always have a post-match podcast, and this one is going to be our first one, or the second one in 14 months from inside the stadium. You know, we did one in obviously December when we were inside the stadium, so we'll do it inside the stadium, so we'll get the fans' reactions. Unfortunately, obviously no away fans, because there are no away fans there, so all Brentford fans reacting after the game as to what's happened, win, lose or draw. So check that out, prideofwest.london.
1 minute then, Carlo. I expect you to have a right go. This is your final message to tell the fans where your information can be found and stuff you're going to produce, and how Barnsley can get on tomorrow.
Probably slightly different. So it's Reds Report. It's at Reds Report _ on Twitter. This is the route to the Premier League. The last time we did that was 97-98 season. We learned yesterday that the assistant manager for that team sadly passed away, Eric Winstanley, who was a stalwart for Barnsley Football Club. So for the Barnsley fans, for the players, we know one team starting with B will be in the final, but will we be that second team that starts with the letter B that will be there? No matter what happens, I hope the Swansea fans enjoy it as the Barnsley fans did, being back in the stadium. I think all four teams are a really good advertisement for football. Whoever gets to the final, you'll have deserved it. And for the Barnsley fans, we keep saying it, be more Val. Let's not get criticising. Let's not point fingers. If somebody makes a mistake, make it a learning curve so they don't do it again. So Barnsley fans tomorrow, get behind them and be more Val.
And Luke, your final message for Swansea in the playoffs, the second leg. As I said, you're nearly there.
Yeah. So you can find us on YouTube and Twitter, Swanscast or at Swanscast Media. And we're also on Spotify. But yeah, we'll do like a review of the match. We've just released our in-between one. But we'll do a review of the match. Not sure what other content happens afterwards, kind of might be depending on what happens. So just keep an eye out for that. In regards to the actual match, yeah, good luck to Barnsley as well. And I hope our fans can make the atmosphere that your fans made, because it was very good on the telly. We got 3,000. Hope everyone that is attending enjoys, and just make sure you do make your voice heard and be that 12th man, because you never know, that might literally be what makes that last gap save is just that atmosphere that just spurs the players on a little bit more, the stuff they've been missing in the last year. So just make your voice heard if you've been lucky enough to get the ticket.
Thank you, guys. It's been amazing to have you on these two preview shows for the first leg and the second leg. Thank you to the viewers that have all got involved. We really appreciate it. Hit that like button and subscribe as well, all around. Subscribe to all of the football channels and help each team. So there we have it. We do have another show coming up in about 15 minutes. That's a fans reaction. So get onto that in about 15 minutes time. But all the talking's nearly been done. It's over to the players now. In about 24 hours time, two teams will be heading to the Wembley playoff final, and two team season will be over. But thanks for joining us from me, Billy, Carlo and Luke. Try and enjoy the games tomorrow. Up the Cherries.
Thank you.
Bye.